The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 6th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said, "Beware of practicing your piety before others, in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
As we begin this season of Lent, I had cause to think back to the church that I attended and helped to serve while I was in seminary still. You see, each person in our seminary class was assigned to a church where we could begin learning about, as they called, ministry and context. So this church where I was assigned was actually a fairly small church on the far reaches of Columbus, Ohio, in a pretty small, kind of rural farming town. Kind of prepped me to come here. And again, while the church itself was much smaller than this one, the sanctuary was set up in a pretty similar way. The front of the sanctuary had 3 spaces. The altar was in the middle. The pulpit was over here on this side. And in that other alcove was their electric piano. The thing that really made it different, though, was that hanging on the wall above that piano, in front of the whole congregation for everyone to see, was this framed picture of Jesus. This picture was kind of odd, but kind of cool at the same time. It looked like Jesus was standing on a boat because there was this big fishing net hanging next to him that he was hanging on to. But it stood out because he had the biggest smile on his face. There are not many pictures of a smiling Jesus, are there? The other thing I remember about this, though, was that as soon as Ash Wednesday came around, they took down the picture. And then they replaced it with this picture of Jesus that I'm sure every one of you have seen somewhere in your life. You know, the one that hangs on the walls of so many church basements or in old Sunday school classrooms. That one where Jesus looks like he just sat down in a portrait studio to have his picture taken. I guess because it was Lent, we didn't want to have Jesus smiling anymore. Lent is serious. Lent is no nonsense. Lent is about all the things we're not supposed to do, right? And that's what Jesus is saying here in the gospel. Don't make a show about giving your alms. Don't show the world your prayers. Don't say, "Oh, look how bad I look since I'm fasting." Don't store up treasures on this earth. Don't eat your sweets and candies that you've given up. Okay? Just don't. You know, But I get it. We use Lent as a time to refocus ourselves. We use Lent as a way to find a discipline in our lives, to make space to see where God is working. We use Lent as a way to remind ourselves of the suffering that Jesus endured as he made his way to the cross. And I'd actually love to hear the other reasons that you all find Lent meaningful. But I believe we engage this season as a journey that we make as we prepare for Jesus' resurrection on Easter morning. You know, when we will once again hear those words of forgiveness that we miss during Lent, when we can once again shout, Hallelujah, and when we can indulge in all of those things that we've given up. Maybe all these preparations make the celebration more spectacular. Maybe it makes the journey up to it more meaningful. Maybe it makes us proud if we can keep our discipline and reach our goal. I know we're just starting Lent, being the first day of the season, but I was wondering if we could think about what we're doing in this season beyond just this season and that early celebration of Easter. Because I remember on Easter morning, after everything that had been stripped away on Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday, after all of that returned to that sanctuary back in Ohio, so did that picture of smiling Jesus, which told us that we could go back to our happy-go-lucky lives and leave all that fasting and mourning stuff behind us. I was wondering, how can what we do during Lent not just shape this season of Lent, but how can it shape our entire lives going forward? For 4 of the past 5 weeks in worship here, we've heard Jesus teaching and preaching from his Sermon on the Mount. He was teaching to his disciples and all who had gathered how to live their lives in this upside-down kingdom that was being ushered in, how to live holy lives even in the midst of the ways of this world, who is blessed, how we can live deeper into these laws God has given us. The teachings we heard this evening from Jesus about almsgiving and praying and fasting and wealth, believe it or not, these are still a part of his Sermon on the Mount. These teachings are about how to live holy lives, not just for the 10th of the year we're in, but for each and every day of our lives. And so I think it's fitting that we begin this season and we begin this day talking about death. In just a little while, you'll be invited to come forward to receive those ashes that will be smeared onto your forehead. And you'll hear those words, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. As we will recall those words we might hear at the graveside of a loved one. As we commend our beloved to God, we commit their body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We have this cross formed with ashes in the very place that we received the mark of Christ at our baptism, reminding us that in baptism we died with Christ and were raised to new life in his resurrection. That cross is with us always, in life and in death, in joy and in challenge, in belief and doubt, in our mourning, in our thanksgivings. It's the cross that first claimed us as God's beloved so that we can claim one another as beloved. We begin here with death in this season because we know that this season and everything about life with Christ is much, much bigger than death. We're called to holiness and a life that shows God's love and grace and mercy in new life, not just now, but always. So we begin here. We journey together, facing life and death. We will hold one another accountable in whatever it is we've decided to do or not do this season. We'll give each other grace when we fall short. We will eat and worship and pray together. We'll be God's people. And we're even allowed to smile. We will learn what it is that we are called to in this world. To live holy lives, to trust in God. All with that smear of ashes that remind us of who we are and whose we are. A blessed journey to you all. Amen.